Billionaire CEO needs life-saving surgery. His ex-wife is the only doctor, but she's 9 months pregnant with twins. The operating room was filled with tension so thick you could cut it with a scalpel. Dr. Isabella Bennett stood over her patient, her hands steady despite the excruciating contraction that had just ripped through her 9-month pregnant belly. "Dr. Bennett, your vitals are spiking. We need to stop this surgery now," the anesthesiologist urged, his voice tight with concern. "I'm not stopping," Isabella replied through gritted teeth, her hands continuing their precise work on the exposed brain before her. "This man dies if I don't remove this clot in the next 10 minutes. Isabella, please," Dr. James Crawford pleaded from the observation deck above. The babies are fine, James. But he won't be if I don't finish this." Another contraction hit, stronger this time, and Isabella had to pause, gripping the operating table as pain coursed through her body. "Dr. Bennett," the head nurse whispered urgently, "tell us who this patient is. Why are you risking everything for him?" Isabella looked down at the unconscious face of Maxwell Sterling, the man who had shattered her heart 5 years ago, the man who had chosen his empire over their marriage, the man who had left her when she needed him most. "Because he's my ex-husband," she whispered, "and I'm the only one who can save him. Here's the question that will haunt you for the next hour. What would you do if the person who broke your heart needed you to save their life? Could you put aside years of pain and betrayal to do what's right? What if doing the right thing meant risking everything you've built since they destroyed you?" Tonight's story is about facing your worst nightmare and your greatest fear in the same moment. It's about a woman who must choose between her duty as a doctor and her duty as a mother. But here's what will shock you. Sometimes the greatest acts of heroism happen not on battlefields or in moments of glory, but in hospital operating rooms at 3 in the morning when nobody's watching. If you believe in doing what's right even when it costs you everything, hit that like button and join us for this incredible story of duty, forgiveness, and unexpected second chances. 6 hours earlier, Dr. Isabella Bennett had been at home in her comfortable suburban house, trying to convince her unborn twins to let her get some sleep. At 34, she was at the peak of her career as one of the country's most respected neurosurgeons, but pregnancy had slowed her down considerably. "Come on, babies," she murmured, rubbing her enormous belly as one of the twins decided to practice soccer against her ribs. "Mommy needs rest before your grand entrance." James emerged from the bathroom, already dressed in his scrubs for his early shift at the children's hospital. Dr. James Crawford was everything Maxwell Sterling had never been: steady, reliable, devoted to family above all else. "How are you feeling this morning?" he asked, sitting on the edge of their bed to stroke her hair. "Like I'm carrying 2 watermelons and a basketball," Isabella replied with a tired smile. "Dr. Martinez says they could come any day now. Are you sure you're ready to take maternity leave? The hospital has been calling non-stop. James, we've discussed this. After the twins are born, I'm taking 6 months off. My patients will be in good hands with Dr. Peterson and the team. But you'll miss it. Surgery is your calling." Isabella shifted carefully, trying to find a comfortable position. "My calling is expanding. These babies are going to need their mother present, not constantly at the hospital." James kissed her forehead tenderly. "You're going to be an amazing mother." "I hope so. Sometimes I wonder if I can balance both. Surgery requires such focus, such dedication. You'll figure it out. You always do." After James left for work, Isabella tried to go back to sleep, but the twins had other plans. She was in the kitchen making breakfast when her phone rang. The caller ID showed St. Mary's Medical Center. "Dr. Bennett." "Doctor, this is Dr. Sarah Kim in the emergency department. We have a critical situation." "Sarah, I'm on maternity leave starting today. Call Dr. Peterson. Dr. Peterson is in surgery with a complex tumor removal that could take 12 more hours. Dr. Williams is handling a brain aneurysm. Doctor, we have a 36-year-old male with severe head trauma from a car accident. CT shows a massive subdural hematoma with significant midline shift." Isabella closed her eyes, knowing what was coming. "Sarah, there are other qualified neurosurgeons in the city." "Not available, doctor. Dr. Reynolds is at a conference in Chicago. Dr. Martinez is dealing with his own family emergency. You're literally the only board-certified neurosurgeon available who can handle this level of complexity. I'm 9 months pregnant with twins. I could go into labor at any moment. I understand the situation, but this patient will die without immediate surgical intervention. The hematoma is expanding rapidly. Isabella felt the familiar pull of duty warring with common sense. What's the patient's name? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Dr. Bennett, I need to tell you something else about this case. What? The patient's name is Maxwell Sterling. The phone slipped from Isabella's hand, clattering on the kitchen floor. Maxwell Sterling. The name she had spent 5 years trying to forget. The man who had promised to love her through everything, then abandoned her the moment his business empire became more important than their marriage. She picked up the phone with trembling fingers. Are you certain? I ran the ID myself, doctor. It's definitely him. Isabella sank into a kitchen chair, her mind reeling. Maxwell was lying in her hospital, dying, and she was the only one who could save him. Dr. Bennett, are you there? I'm here. What's his condition? Critical, but stable for now. The hematoma is large, but the bleed appears to have stopped. However, the pressure on his brain is building. Without surgery in the next few hours, he'll have permanent brain damage or die. And there's absolutely no one else. Doctor, I've called every neurosurgeon in 3 states. You're our only option. Isabella closed her eyes, feeling one of the twins kick as if sensing her distress. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Thank you, Dr. Bennett. You're saving a life today. I hope so, Isabella murmured, hanging up the phone. The drive to the hospital felt surreal. Isabella's mind kept drifting back to the last time she had seen Maxwell, 5 years ago in divorce court. He had looked so confident, so sure that he was making the right choice in choosing his business over their marriage. You're making a mistake, Maxwell, she had told him that day. Success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Isabella, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. Sterling Industries is at a critical juncture. I can't be distracted by personal obligations right now. Personal obligations. Is that what our marriage has become to you? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I've watched you change over the past 2 years. Everything became about the company, about proving yourself, about accumulating more wealth and power. And what's wrong with ambition? Nothing, until it becomes more important than the people you love. The conversation had ended with Maxwell choosing his empire over their life together. He had walked away without looking back, leaving Isabella to rebuild her shattered heart and her faith in love. Meeting James 2 years later had been a revelation. He was a successful pediatrician, but never let his career overshadow his personal relationships. When he proposed 6 months ago, Isabella had finally believed in love again. Now, as she pulled into the hospital parking garage, she wondered if the universe was playing some cosmic joke on her. Of all the surgeons in all the hospitals, Maxwell's life was in her hands. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. Hope you're resting. Love you and can't wait to meet our babies. Isabella stared at the message, guilt washing over her. She should tell James where she was going, what she was about to do. But she knew he would try to stop her, would worry about the risks to her and the twins. Instead, she texted back, love you too. See you tonight. It wasn't technically a lie. She hoped to see him tonight, assuming she survived the next few hours. St. Mary's Medical Center was buzzing with activity as Isabella made her way to the emergency department. Several staff members did double takes, seeing her waddle through the halls in her current condition. Dr. Bennett. Dr. Sarah Kim rushed over, her face a mixture of relief and concern. Thank you for coming. But are you sure about this? You look like you could deliver any moment. I'm fine, Sarah. Show me the scans. They walked to the viewing room where Maxwell's CT images were displayed on large monitors. Isabella studied them with professional detachment, noting the size and location of the hematoma. It's substantial but operable, she said finally. The good news is it's not in an eloquent area of the brain. If we can relieve the pressure quickly, there shouldn't be permanent damage. Dr. Bennett, I have to ask, are you emotionally prepared for this surgery? I understand you and the patient have history. Isabella turned to face the younger doctor. Sarah, my personal feelings don't matter. There's a man dying upstairs, and I have the skills to save him. That's all that matters. But the risks to you and your babies. I've performed hundreds of surgeries while pregnant. Obviously not at 9 months, but I know my limits. What if you go into labor during the procedure? Then we'll deal with that situation if it arises. Right now, Let's focus on saving Maxwell's life." As they walked toward the elevators, Isabella caught sight of herself in a reflective surface. She looked enormous, tired, and completely unsuited for major surgery. But she also looked determined. "Dr. Kim, I need you to call Dr. Martinez and ask him to stand by in case of obstetric complications. Also, have an anesthesiologist prepared for emergency C-section if necessary. You're really going to do this. I'm really going to do this." The elevator ride to the surgical floor felt endless. Isabella's mind was racing with surgical plans, risk assessments, and memories she had tried to bury. By the time the doors opened, she had compartmentalized her emotions and shifted into pure medical mode. The surgical team was already assembled when she arrived. She recognized most of them from her years at the hospital, and she could see the surprise and concern in their eyes as they took in her condition. "I know what you're all thinking," Isabella said as she entered the scrub room. "But I need you to trust me. I've reviewed the scans, and this is a surgery I can perform safely." Dr. Patricia Williams, the head surgical nurse, approached her carefully. "Isabella, honey, you're 9 months pregnant. This is insane." "Patricia, how long have we worked together?" 12 years. "In those 12 years, have you ever seen me take unnecessary risks with a patient?" "No, but..." "Have you ever seen me operate when I wasn't confident in my abilities?" "No." "Then trust me now. I know what I'm doing." Patricia studied her face, then nodded slowly. "What do you need from us?" "Modified positioning to accommodate my belly, frequent vital sign monitoring, and everyone needs to be prepared for the possibility that this surgery might be interrupted by labor." "Jesus, Isabella, are you really doing this for him? After everything he put you through?" Isabella paused in her scrubbing. "I'm not doing this for him, Patricia. I'm doing this because it's my job. Because I swore an oath to save lives, regardless of my personal feelings. And if you go into labor, then we'll finish the surgery first." As Isabella entered the operating room, she saw Maxwell for the first time in 5 years. He looked older, more distinguished, but also somehow smaller, lying unconscious on the table. The machines monitoring his vital signs beeped steadily, the only sound in the otherwise silent room. "Vitals are stable," the anesthesiologist reported. "He's been under for 2 hours now." Isabella approached the table, her professional mask firmly in place. "Let's save his life." Just as she was about to make the first incision, her phone rang. The caller ID showed James's name. "Dr. Bennett, should I answer it?" the circulating nurse asked. Isabella hesitated. If she answered, James would know where she was and would try to stop her. If she didn't, he would worry when she didn't respond. "Let it go to voicemail." "Isabella," came James's voice through the speaker as the voicemail played. "I just heard from Sarah Kim that you're at the hospital. Please tell me you're not about to do something dangerous. Call me back immediately." The room fell silent as everyone processed what they had just heard. Isabella felt her resolve waver for just a moment, thinking about James's concern, about their unborn children, about the life they had built together. Then she looked down at Maxwell's face, peaceful in unconsciousness, and remembered her oath as a physician. "Turn off my phone," she said quietly. "We have a surgery to perform." As the team prepared Maxwell for the operation, Isabella found herself studying his face more closely. The years had been kind to him physically. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there during their marriage, evidence of stress and long hours building his empire. "Dr. Bennett." Patricia's voice brought her back to the present. "Are you ready?" "I'm ready." Isabella made the first incision with steady hands, her muscle memory taking over despite the bizarre circumstances. The familiar rhythm of surgery calmed her nerves and focused her mind. "Scalp bleeding is minimal," she reported, proceeding to craniotomy. As she worked, Isabella became aware of whispers among the surgical team. She knew they were talking about her condition, about the risks she was taking, about the complicated history between her and the patient. "Focus, everyone," she said firmly. "This is just another surgery." But it wasn't just another surgery, and everyone in the room knew it. This was a woman risking her life and the lives of her unborn children to save the man who had broken her heart. 20 minutes into the procedure, Isabella felt the first contraction. It was mild, barely noticeable, and she continued working without pause. "How are you feeling, doctor?" the anesthesiologist asked, monitoring her vitals along with Maxwell's. "I'm fine." Let's keep our focus on the patient. As she carefully removed pieces of damaged skull to access the brain, Isabella found herself falling into the meditative state that surgery often provided. Her hands moved with practiced precision, each movement calculated and deliberate. Excellent visualization of the hematoma, she announced. Beginning evacuation now. The second contraction hit just as she was making a critical cut. Isabella paused, gripping the edge of the table as pain radiated through her lower back and abdomen. Dr. Bennett. Patricia moved closer, concern evident in her voice. I'm fine. Just give me a moment. The contraction passed, and Isabella resumed her work. But she knew they were starting, and she knew they would only get stronger and more frequent. Patricia, time this surgery. How long have we been operating? 45 minutes. And how much longer do you estimate for complete evacuation and closure? At your current pace, maybe another hour. Isabella did quick mental calculations. If her contractions were following a normal pattern, she had maybe an hour before they became too intense to continue operating. Then we need to move faster. For the next 30 minutes, Isabella worked with focused intensity, carefully removing the blood clot that was threatening Maxwell's life. The surgical team watched in amazement as she performed complex procedures while clearly in the early stages of labor. Clot evacuation is complete, she announced. Beginning hemostasis. Just as she said the words, another contraction hit, stronger than the previous ones. This time, Isabella couldn't hide her discomfort. She bent slightly, her breathing becoming labored. That's it, Dr. Williams said firmly. We're calling Dr. Peterson to finish. Dr. Peterson is still in surgery and won't be available for hours, Isabella replied through gritted teeth. I'm finishing this. Isabella, you're in labor. I'm in early labor. There's a difference. She resumed her work, but everyone in the room could see that her condition was deteriorating. Her movements were becoming less fluid, and she was having to pause more frequently. Dr. Bennett, the anesthesiologist said quietly, your blood pressure is elevated, and your heart rate is increasing. I'm concerned about both you and your babies. Monitor me closely, but I'm not stopping. As she worked to stop the bleeding in Maxwell's brain, Isabella found her mind drifting to their early days together. They had met during her residency, when she was just beginning to discover her passion for neurosurgery. Maxwell had been starting his tech company, working 18-hour days but always making time for late-night dinners and long conversations about their dreams. You're going to change the world, he had told her one night as they studied together in the hospital library. Your hands are going to save so many lives. And you're going to build an empire, she had replied. We're going to conquer the world together. How naive they had been, thinking love was enough to overcome any obstacle. Bleeding is controlled, Isabella announced, pulling herself back to the present. Beginning closure. Another contraction hit, this one lasting nearly a minute and causing Isabella to stop working entirely. She gripped the operating table, her knuckles white with effort. Time between contractions, she asked when it passed. About 8 minutes apart, Patricia replied. Then we have time. But as Isabella began the delicate process of closing Maxwell's skull, it became clear that time was running out. The contractions were getting stronger and closer together, and her ability to maintain the precise movements required for surgery was diminishing. Almost done, she whispered, as much to herself as to the team. Just a few more sutures. The final contraction before completion was the strongest yet. Isabella had to stop completely, bending over the operating table as pain consumed her entire body. That's enough, Patricia said firmly. We're getting you to labor and delivery right now. 2 more sutures, Isabella gasped. 2 more and he's safe. With superhuman effort, she straightened up and completed the final sutures, sealing Maxwell's skull and completing the surgery that had saved his life. Surgery complete, she announced, just as another massive contraction hit. This time, Isabella couldn't remain standing. She sank into a chair as the medical team sprang into action, preparing to transport her to the maternity ward while others ensured Maxwell's stable transfer to recovery. Beautiful work, doctor, Patricia said as they helped Isabella into a wheelchair. You just performed a miracle. 2 miracles, Isabella corrected, feeling fluid running down her legs. My water just broke. Have you ever witnessed someone sacrifice everything for a person who hurt them deeply? Have you seen love transformed into something bigger than personal pain? Share your story of witnessing extraordinary forgiveness in the comments below. As they rushed Isabella toward the maternity ward, she caught one last glimpse of Maxwell being wheeled toward recovery. His surgery had been successful, and barring complications, he would make a full recovery. Now it was time for Isabella to face her own medical emergency, delivering twins after performing major surgery for 3 hours. "James," she gasped as they moved through the hospital corridors. "Someone needs to call James." "Already done," Patricia assured her. "He's on his way." As they reached the labor and delivery ward, Isabella realized that the hardest part of this ordeal was just beginning. She had saved Maxwell's life, but now she had to fight for her own life and the lives of her children. The next few hours would test every limit of her strength, her resolve, and her capacity for forgiveness. Because as she was about to discover, Maxwell's accident was about to change not just his life, but the lives of everyone who loved them both. The labor and delivery ward erupted into controlled chaos as Isabella's wheelchair burst through the doors. Dr. Maria Martinez, Isabella's obstetrician, was already waiting with a full medical team. "Isabella, what on earth were you thinking?" Dr. Martinez demanded as they transferred her to the delivery bed. "You just performed major surgery while in active labor. The patient needed immediate intervention." Isabella gasped between contractions. "There was no one else available." "There's always someone else available. You could have transferred him to University Hospital." "Maria, please. The surgery is done. Let's focus on delivering these babies safely." Dr. Martinez shook her head, but immediately began examining Isabella. "You're already 8 centimeters dilated. These twins are coming whether we're ready or not." "How long?" Isabella asked, gripping the bed rails as another contraction peaked. "Based on your progression, I'd say within the next 2 hours." The doors to the delivery room flew open as James rushed in, still wearing his scrubs from the children's hospital. His face was a mixture of relief, anger, and overwhelming concern. "Isabella, my God, what were you thinking?" "James, I'm okay. The babies are okay. You performed brain surgery while in labor. That's not okay." Dr. Martinez looked between them with confusion. "Brain surgery? Isabella, you told me you were consulting on a case." "I may have understated the situation," Isabella admitted weakly. "You may have." James sat beside her bed, taking her hand. "Isabella, when Patricia called and told me what you'd done, I thought she was joking. Then I thought I was having a nightmare. The patient needed help." "The patient has a name," James said quietly. "Patricia told me who it was." Isabella met his eyes, seeing hurt and understanding warring in his expression. "James, you operated on Maxwell Sterling. Your ex-husband. He was dying. I was the only surgeon available. You were 9 months pregnant with our children. I know the risks I took." James was quiet for a moment, processing the magnitude of what she had done. "Isabella, I need to understand something. Did you do this because you still have feelings for him?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Isabella looked into the eyes of the man she was planning to marry, the father of her unborn children, and realized she owed him complete honesty. "I did this because I'm a doctor first, James. My feelings for Maxwell died 5 years ago when he chose his company over our marriage. Then why take such an enormous risk? Because saving lives is who I am. It's not what I do, it's who I am. If I had let him die when I could have saved him, I wouldn't be able to live with myself." Another massive contraction hit, ending their conversation as Isabella focused on breathing through the pain. "We'll discuss this later," James said gently, squeezing her hand. "Right now, let's meet our children." For the next hour, Isabella labored with the same determination she had shown in the operating room. James never left her side, offering encouragement and support despite his obvious emotional turmoil. "Twin A is crowning," Dr. Martinez announced. "Isabella, I need you to push on the next contraction." "I can't. I'm exhausted. You just saved a man's life while in labor. You can deliver these babies." With James holding one hand and the bed rail in the other, Isabella pushed with everything she had left. The first twin, a daughter, arrived screaming and perfect at 11:47 p.m. "She's beautiful," James whispered, tears streaming down his face as the nurses cleaned their daughter. "Isabella, look at her." But Isabella barely had time to glimpse their daughter before the next wave of contractions began. Twinbee was in a hurry to join his sister. "Here comes baby number 2, Dr. Martinez called out. "One more push, Isabella." Their son arrived 3 minutes later, completing their family in the most dramatic way possible. "2 healthy babies," Dr. Martinez announced. 7 pounds, 2 ounces for your daughter, and 6 pounds, 14 ounces for your son. As the medical team tended to the babies and completed Isabella's delivery, she lay back exhausted but triumphant. She had saved Maxwell's life and successfully delivered her twins. It felt surreal. "Have you chosen names?" the nurse asked as she placed both babies in Isabella's arms. Isabella looked at James, realizing they had never finalized their decision. "What do you think?" "Sophia Grace," James said, touching their daughter's tiny hand. "And Michael James." "Perfect," Isabella whispered, studying their faces. Both babies had inherited her dark hair and James's blue eyes. They were absolutely perfect. As the immediate post-delivery procedures were completed, Isabella found her thoughts drifting to Maxwell. She wondered if he was awake yet, if he even knew what had happened. "Isabella." James's voice brought her back to the present. "The babies need to go to the nursery for observation. Standard procedure for twins. Are they okay?" "They're perfect. Dr. Martinez just wants to monitor them for a few hours." As the nurses took Sophia and Michael to the nursery, Isabella felt the exhaustion of the past 6 hours settling into her bones. She had performed complex brain surgery and delivered twins. Her body was screaming for rest. "Try to sleep," James said, adjusting her pillows. "I'll stay here with you." "James, about what I did tonight. We don't have to talk about it now." "Yes, we do." "You deserve an explanation." James sat back down beside her bed, his expression carefully neutral. "I'm listening." "When Sarah called and told me someone needed emergency surgery, my first instinct was to refuse. I'm on maternity leave, I'm 9 months pregnant. It made no sense for me to operate. But you went anyway." "Not until she told me the patient's name. The moment I heard it was Maxwell, everything changed." "Because you still love him." Isabella shook her head firmly. "Because I realized this was my chance to finally close that chapter of my life properly. By risking your life for his. By proving to myself that I could put my professional oath above my personal feelings. Maxwell hurt me deeply, James. For years, I carried anger and resentment about how our marriage ended. And now I know I'm capable of saving the life of someone who broke my heart. That gives me a kind of peace I didn't expect." James was quiet for several minutes, processing her words. "Isabella, what you did tonight was either the most selfless act I've ever witnessed, or the most reckless. Maybe it was both. I need to know something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, if Maxwell hadn't been injured, if he had come to you healthy and asked for another chance, what would you have said?" Isabella met his eyes without hesitation. "I would have told him I'm engaged to a wonderful man who loves me unconditionally, and I would have wished him well. Even after what you did tonight. Especially after what I did tonight. James, saving Maxwell's life reminded me of who I am at my core. I'm a healer, but it also reminded me of what we have together. You've been here through my entire pregnancy, supporting my career, planning our future. Maxwell was never capable of that kind of partnership." James leaned over and kissed her forehead. "I love you, Isabella. What you did tonight scared me more than anything ever has, but I'm also incredibly proud of you. Even though I risked our children. Even though you risked our children. Because you did it for all the right reasons." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Dr. Martinez peered in, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but we have a situation upstairs." "What kind of situation?" Isabella asked, immediately alert. "Your patient is awake and asking questions. He wants to know who performed his surgery." Isabella's heart began racing. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. I thought you should decide how to handle this." "Is he medically stable?" "Completely. Dr. Peterson examined him an hour ago. The surgery was flawless, Isabella. You may have saved his life, but you also prevented any neurological damage." Isabella felt a wave of relief. Despite everything, Maxwell would recover completely. "Tell him Dr. Peterson performed the surgery." "Isabella," James said quietly, "he's going to find out eventually." "I know, but not tonight. Tonight, I need to focus on our babies and my recovery." Dr. Martinez nodded. I'll handle it. But Isabella, he's asking specifically about seeing his surgeon. He seems very insistent. He always was, Isabella murmured. Tell him his surgeon will meet with him tomorrow when he's stronger. After Dr. Martinez left, Isabella tried to sleep, but her mind kept racing. She wondered what Maxwell would say when he learned she had saved his life. Would he be grateful? Guilty? Indifferent? Stop thinking about him, James said softly. I can practically hear your mind working. I'm sorry. I just keep wondering what happens next. What happens next is that you recover, our babies grow strong, and we plan our wedding. And Maxwell recovers and goes back to his life. His very separate life that has nothing to do with us. Isabella wanted to believe it would be that simple, but she suspected the next few days would be more complicated than any of them anticipated. The following morning brought a parade of visitors to Isabella's room. Her parents arrived first, shocked and proud in equal measure when they learned what she had done. Sweetheart, that was incredibly brave, her mother said, holding baby Sophia. But promise me you'll never do anything like that again. I promise, Mom. I think my days of dramatic surgery are behind me. Her father sat beside her bed, bouncing baby Michael gently. You know, when you were little, you used to operate on your dolls. I guess some things never change. Dad, this was different. Was it? You saw someone who needed help, and you helped them. That's who you've always been. Patricia Williams stopped by during her lunch break, bringing flowers and updates from the surgical department. The entire hospital is talking about what you did, she said, arranging the bouquet on Isabella's windowsill. Half the staff thinks you're a hero, the other half thinks you're insane. What do you think? I think you're both. Isabella, I've never seen anything like what you did last night. The focus, the precision, the sheer determination. It was incredible. How is Maxwell doing? Physically, he's doing great. Dr. Peterson says he should be ready for discharge in a few days. And mentally, he's asking a lot of questions, specifically about his surgeon. Isabella's stomach tightened. What kind of questions? He wants to thank whoever saved his life. He keeps saying he has vague memories of a woman's voice during the surgery. That's impossible. He was under general anesthesia. Sometimes patients retain auditory memories even under anesthesia. Did you talk to him during the procedure? Isabella thought back to the surgery. She had been so focused on the technical aspects that she couldn't remember speaking to Maxwell at all. I don't think so. Well, he's convinced his surgeon was a woman, and he's determined to find out who. After Patricia left, Isabella spent the afternoon with her babies, marveling at their tiny features and trying not to think about Maxwell's investigation into his mystery surgeon. James returned from his rounds at the children's hospital around 4 o'clock, looking tired but happy. How are my girls? He asked, kissing Isabella and then baby Sophia. We're good. Sophia is a champion sleeper, but Michael seems to think nighttime is party time. He gets that from his mother. You used to do your best studying at midnight. James, Patricia came by earlier. She said Maxwell is asking questions about his surgeon. James sat down heavily in the visitor's chair. I was hoping we'd have more time before dealing with this. Maybe I should just tell him the truth. Are you ready for that conversation? I don't know. Part of me wants to see his reaction when he learns what I did for him. But part of me wants to avoid any interaction at all. What does your gut tell you? Isabella considered the question carefully. My gut tells me that hiding the truth will only make this more complicated. Then maybe it's time for that conversation. Their discussion was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Through the partially open door, they could hear raised voices and someone arguing with the nursing staff. Sir, you cannot leave your room without medical clearance, a nurse was saying firmly. I just want to walk around. I feel fine. Isabella's blood froze. She recognized that voice immediately. I need to speak with whoever is in charge. I want to meet the surgeon who operated on me. Mr. Sterling, please return to your room. Dr. Peterson will speak with you during evening rounds. Dr. Peterson didn't perform my surgery. I may have been unconscious, but I'm not stupid. I want to meet the real surgeon. James moved to close the door completely, but it was too late. Maxwell had spotted the movement and was looking directly into Isabella's room. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Maxwell stood in the hospital hallway wearing a patient gown and looking healthier than he had any right to after brain surgery 24 hours earlier. His eyes met Isabella's across the space, and she watched recognition dawn in his expression. "Isabella," he whispered, his voice carrying clearly down the hall. "Mr. Sterling, you need to return to your room immediately," the nurse insisted, but Maxwell was already walking toward Isabella's door. "It was you," he said, stopping in the doorway. "You're the one who saved my life." Isabella felt her heart racing as she looked at the man who had once been her entire world. Maxwell looked older, more serious, but his green eyes were the same ones that had once looked at her with such love. "Hello, Maxwell. May I come in?" Isabella glanced at James, who nodded slightly. "Come in." Maxwell entered the room carefully, his eyes taking in the scene. Isabella in the hospital bed, James sitting beside her, and two babies sleeping in the bassinets nearby. "These are your children," he said, his voice filled with wonder. "Yes, Sophia and Michael. They're beautiful." Maxwell's eyes returned to Isabella's face. "Isabella, I need to understand what happened. Did you really perform surgery on me while you were in labor?" "Yes." "Why?" The simple question carried the weight of 5 years of separation, hurt, and unanswered questions. "Because you were dying, and I was the only surgeon available who could save you. But after everything that happened between us, my personal feelings don't override my professional obligations." Maxwell was quiet for several minutes, processing the magnitude of what she had done. "Isabella, you risked your life and the lives of your children to save me. I did my job." "Your job?" Maxwell's voice rose slightly. "Your job was to be on maternity leave, preparing for the birth of your children. Your job was not to perform emergency brain surgery." "Maxwell, please keep your voice down. The babies are sleeping." "I'm sorry." He lowered his voice but remained clearly agitated. "Isabella, do you understand what you did for me?" "I performed a craniotomy to remove a subdural hematoma. It's a procedure I've done hundreds of times. You saved my life when you had every reason to let me die." The blunt statement hung in the air like an accusation. James shifted uncomfortably in his chair, while Isabella stared at Maxwell with growing irritation. "I would never let anyone die if I could prevent it. Not even you. Even after what I did to you. Especially after what you did to me." Maxwell looked confused. "I don't understand." "Maxwell, 5 years ago, you taught me that some people are incapable of putting others before themselves. Last night, I proved to myself that I'm not one of those people." "Isabella, I didn't save your life because I still care about you romantically. I saved your life because it was the right thing to do, and because I needed to prove to myself that I could." Maxwell's shoulders sagged as her words sank in. "So it was about closure. It was about being the person I want to be, regardless of our history." James cleared his throat quietly. "Perhaps I should introduce myself. I'm Dr. James Crawford, Isabella's fiancé." Maxwell turned his attention to James for the first time, and Isabella could see him processing the implications. "You're the father of her children." "Yes. And you're getting married." "We are." Maxwell nodded slowly, absorbing this information. "Dr. Crawford, your fiancée is the most remarkable woman I've ever known. I'm aware of that. She's also the bravest. Also aware of that. I destroyed my marriage to her because I was too selfish and ambitious to appreciate what I had." James studied Maxwell carefully. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that losing Isabella was the biggest mistake of my life. But seeing her now, seeing the family she's built, I can see that it was the best thing that ever happened to her." Isabella felt tears welling up in her eyes. This was not the Maxwell she remembered, the one who had chosen his company over their marriage without a second thought. "Maxwell, what happened to you?" she asked quietly. "What do you mean? You're different. You're saying things the old Maxwell never would have said." Maxwell smiled sadly. "Near-death experiences have a way of clarifying priorities. Is that what this is? A near-death revelation?" "Partly. But mostly it's 5 years of regret finally coming to the surface. You regret our divorce. I regret everything about how I handled our marriage. Isabella, I was so focused on building my empire that I lost sight of why I was building it in the first place, which was to give us a better life, to provide for our future family, to prove that I was worthy of someone like you." Isabella shook her head. "Maxwell, I never needed you to prove anything. I just needed you to be present. I know that now. 5 years too late." 5 years too late, Maxwell agreed. The room fell silent as all three adults contemplated the weight of lost time, and missed opportunities. Baby Michael chose that moment to wake up, his tiny cries breaking the tension. "I should feed him," Isabella said, reaching for her son. "I'll get him," James offered, lifting Michael from his bassinet and settling him into Isabella's arms. Maxwell watched the interaction with obvious pain. "You're a wonderful father," he told James. "I try to be. Isabella deserves a partner who puts family first. She has one." Maxwell nodded, understanding the subtle warning in James's words. "Dr. Crawford, may I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Are you threatened by what Isabella did for me last night?" James considered the question carefully. "No, I'm proud of what she did, but I'm also concerned about why she felt compelled to do it. Because she's a doctor. Because she's still processing her feelings about your marriage." Isabella looked up from feeding Michael. "James, it's okay, Isabella. This conversation needs to happen." Maxwell stepped closer to the bed. "Dr. Crawford, I need you to understand something. What Isabella did last night wasn't about unresolved feelings for me. It was about her being the kind of person who saves lives regardless of personal cost." "How can you be so certain?" "Because if she still had feelings for me, she would have found a way to avoid the surgery entirely. The fact that she operated on me while risking her own life and the lives of her children proves that she's moved on completely." Isabella stared at Maxwell in surprise. "That's a very mature perspective. I've had 5 years to think about what went wrong between us. I've learned to recognize love when I see it. And what you have with Dr. Crawford is real love." "How do you know?" "Because he's here. Because he stayed by your side through your pregnancy and delivery. Because he's willing to have this difficult conversation instead of throwing me out of your room." James stood up and extended his hand to Maxwell. "Thank you for saying that." Maxwell shook his hand. "Thank you for loving her the way she deserves to be loved." As the two men looked at each other, Isabella felt a weight lifting from her chest that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. The fear, the guilt, the complicated emotions about saving Maxwell's life were beginning to resolve into something simpler: peace. "Maxwell," she said quietly, "I need to ask you something. Anything. Are you happy? I mean, genuinely happy with the life you built after our divorce?" Maxwell was quiet for a long moment. "Professionally, I've exceeded every goal I set. Sterling Industries is worth more than I ever dreamed possible. That's not what I asked. Personally, no, I'm not happy. I have everything money can buy and no one to share it with." "Have you tried dating?" "I've tried. But every woman I meet reminds me of what I lost when I lost you." Isabella felt a pang of sadness for the man who had once been her whole world. "Maxwell, you need to move on." "I know. And seeing you now, seeing how complete your life is, I think I finally can." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to make some changes. Maybe step back from the day-to-day operations of the company. Maybe travel, pursue some interests I've been ignoring. Maybe find someone who can love you for who you are now, not who you were 5 years ago. Maybe." Baby Sophia woke up as if on cue, adding her voice to her brother's soft fussing. The room suddenly felt very full of new life and possibility. "I should let you rest," Maxwell said, moving toward the door. "Isabella, I can never thank you enough for what you did." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes, I do. You gave me my life back when you had every reason not to." "Maxwell." "Yes. Don't waste it this time." Maxwell smiled, the first genuine smile Isabella had seen from him in years. "I won't. I promise." After Maxwell left, Isabella and James sat in comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts about the conversation that had just unfolded. "How do you feel?" James asked finally. "Relieved. Like I can finally put that chapter of my life to rest completely. No regrets about the surgery." "None. Well, maybe one small regret." "What's that?" "I should have told you before I went to the hospital. You deserve to know what I was about to do." "Yes, I did. But I understand why you didn't. Because you would have tried to stop me. Because I would have wanted to come with you." Isabella looked at James with surprise. "Really? Really? Isabella, what you did last night was extraordinary. I would have been honored to support you through it. Even knowing the risks. Even knowing the risks. Because that's what partners do." Isabella reached for James's hand. "I love you. More than I've ever loved anyone. Even more than Maxwell." What I felt for Maxwell was intense, but ultimately selfish. We brought out each other's ambitions, but not each other's best qualities. And what do we bring out in each other? Compassion, Stability. The desire to be better people. That sounds like a pretty good foundation for marriage. The best foundation. They were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Dr. Martinez peered in, looking pleased. How are my star patient and her babies? We're all doing well, Isabella replied. When can we go home? If your recovery continues this smoothly, tomorrow morning. But Isabella, I need to discuss something with you. What? The hospital board wants to meet with you. Isabella's stomach tightened. About what? About what you did last night. There are questions about whether you violated hospital protocol by operating while in labor. Are they considering disciplinary action? I don't think so. But they want to review the circumstances to determine if new policies need to be implemented. James leaned forward. Dr. Martinez, Isabella saved a man's life. Surely that counts for something. Of course it does. But hospitals have liability concerns. What Isabella did was heroic, but it was also unprecedented. When do they want to meet? Isabella asked. Next week, after you've had time to recover. Don't worry too much about it. I think they're more interested in understanding what happened than in punishing you. After Dr. Martinez left, Isabella found herself thinking about the potential consequences of her decision to operate on Maxwell. She had been so focused on saving his life that she hadn't considered the professional ramifications. What if they suspend my privileges? She asked James. Then we'll deal with it. Isabella, you did the right thing. If the hospital board can't see that, then maybe it's not the right place for you. But my career, your career will survive. You're one of the most respected neurosurgeons in the country. Any hospital would be lucky to have you. I've worked so hard to build my reputation here. And that reputation is what gave you the skills to save Maxwell's life. No matter what happens with the board, you can be proud of that. That evening, as Isabella fed and rocked her babies, she reflected on the events of the past 24 hours. She had saved her ex-husband's life, delivered healthy twins, and somehow found closure she hadn't known she needed. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. When she opened it, she saw a photo of an enormous flower arrangement with a simple message. Thank you for giving me a second chance at life. I won't waste it. That was thoughtful, James observed, looking at the message over her shoulder. It was. I think Maxwell really has changed. Do you think he'll follow through on making changes in his life? I hope so. Everyone deserves to be happy, even people who make terrible mistakes. Even ex-husbands who broke your heart. Especially ex-husbands who broke my heart. James, holding on to anger and resentment only hurts the person carrying those feelings. And now I feel free. Completely, totally free to love you and our children without any shadows from the past. As if sensing the emotional weight of the moment, both babies settled into peaceful sleep simultaneously. Isabella and James sat together in the quiet hospital room, holding hands and watching their children breathe. What are you thinking about? James asked softly. I'm thinking about how strange life is. 24 hours ago, I thought I knew exactly what my future looked like. Now everything feels different. Different how? Clearer. More focused. Like I've been carrying invisible baggage for 5 years and finally set it down. The baggage of your marriage to Maxwell. The baggage of guilt and anger and unfinished business. James, I think I needed to save Maxwell's life to prove to myself that I had truly moved on. And have you? Completely. James leaned over and kissed her gently. Then let's go home tomorrow and start our real life together. Our life as a family of 4. Our life as a family of 4 who've already survived the most dramatic 24 hours imaginable. Isabella laughed softly. I love you, James Crawford. I love you too, Isabella Bennett. Soon to be Isabella Crawford. Actually, I've been thinking about that. About what? About keeping my name professionally. Dr. Isabella Bennett has a nice ring to it. And personally, I'd love to be Mrs. James Crawford. The best of both worlds. The best of both worlds. The next morning brought the controlled chaos of hospital discharge with newborn twins. As Isabella sat in the wheelchair required by hospital policy, holding Sophia while James carried Michael, she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the life they were beginning together. Ready to go home? The discharge nurse asked cheerfully. More than ready, Isabella replied. As they wheeled through the hospital corridors toward the exit, Isabella caught sight of Maxwell standing at the nurse's station on the surgical floor. He was dressed in street clothes and appeared to be completing his own discharge paperwork. Their eyes met across the busy hallway, and Maxwell raised his hand in a small wave. Isabella nodded back, a gesture of acknowledgement and closure. "That's him, isn't it?" James asked quietly. "Yes. How do you feel seeing him?" "Like I'm looking at someone from a previous lifetime." "Good. Very good." As they exited the hospital into the bright morning sunshine, Isabella realized that the woman who had entered this building 2 days ago was fundamentally different from the one leaving it now. She was no longer carrying the weight of unresolved feelings about her first marriage. She was no longer questioning her ability to balance professional duty with personal relationships. She was simply Isabella Bennett, mother of twins, fiancée of James Crawford, and the neurosurgeon who had performed the most important operation of her career while in labor. "Home," James announced as they loaded the babies into their car seats. "Home," Isabella agreed, settling into the passenger seat with a deep sense of contentment. As they drove through the city toward their house, Isabella's phone rang. The caller ID showed the hospital's main number. "Dr. Bennett, this is Patricia Williams. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all, Patricia. How can I help you?" "I wanted to let you know that Maxwell Sterling was discharged this morning. I saw him in the hallway." "How was he doing?" "Physically, perfectly. Dr. Peterson says he'll make a complete recovery with no lasting effects." "That's wonderful news." "Isabella, there's something else." Before he left, Maxwell made a significant donation to the hospital. "What kind of donation?" "He's funding a new wing for the maternity ward, specifically for high-risk pregnancies and emergency deliveries." Isabella felt tears spring to her eyes. "How much?" $5 million. "He's calling it the Bennett Wing for Maternal Excellence." "He can't do that." "He already did. The paperwork is complete, and construction begins next month." Isabella was speechless. The magnitude of Maxwell's gesture was overwhelming. "Patricia, is there more?" "He also established a scholarship fund for medical students pursuing neurosurgery. The Isabella Bennett Scholarship for Surgical Excellence." "Patricia, there's more. He's funding a research grant for innovations in emergency surgery protocols, specifically for situations where surgeons might need to operate under less than ideal conditions." Isabella was crying now, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness and scope of Maxwell's gifts. "Did he leave a message?" "He said to tell you that these donations represent his gratitude not just for saving his life, but for teaching him what true service looks like." After Isabella hung up, James pulled the car over and took her hand. "What was that about?" Through her tears, Isabella explained Maxwell's donations. James listened in amazement as she described the wing, the scholarship, and the research grant. "Isabella, he's basically funding your legacy. He's funding improvements that will help other people in situations like ours. It's an incredible gesture. It's his way of making sure that what I did for him has meaning beyond just saving his life." "And how does that make you feel?" Isabella considered the question carefully. "Proud, grateful, and completely at peace with everything that happened between us." "Good, because now we can focus entirely on our future. Our future as the Crawford family. Our future as the Crawford family with an exciting story to tell our children when they're older." Isabella laughed through her tears. "They're never going to believe us. Then we'll have to show them the Bennett Wing at the hospital, and the scholarship recipients, and the research that comes from the grant." As they continued driving toward home, Isabella reflected on the unexpected ways that life could come full circle. She had saved Maxwell's life out of professional duty and personal integrity. In return, he had honored her sacrifice in ways that would benefit countless families for generations to come. It was, she realized, the perfect ending to a love story that had needed to transform into something bigger than romance. Their marriage had failed, but their individual growth had led to something more valuable: the ability to choose love and service over hurt and resentment. "James," she said as they pulled into their driveway. "Yes. Thank you for supporting me through all of this. Thank you for showing me what true courage looks like. And thank you for loving me enough to let me be who I needed to be, even when it was scary. Thank you for coming home to us." As they carried their sleeping babies into the house they would grow up in, Isabella felt the profound satisfaction that comes from knowing you've lived up to your own highest standards. She had saved a life, delivered healthy children, and found peace with her past. But most importantly, she had chosen love over fear, service over safety, and forgiveness over resentment. And in making those choices, she had discovered that sometimes the greatest acts of love aren't romantic gestures, but moments of grace that transform everyone involved. What's the most difficult choice you've ever made for someone who hurt you? Have you ever found that forgiving someone changed you more than it changed them? Share your story of choosing grace over grievance in the comments below. 2 weeks later, Isabella stood in the hospital boardroom, facing the panel of administrators who would determine the future of her career. She held her head high, confident in the choices she had made and prepared to defend them. Dr. Bennett, the chief of staff, began. We've reviewed the circumstances of your surgery on Maxwell Sterling. While we acknowledge the life-saving nature of your intervention, we have concerns about the risks you took. I understand your concerns, Isabella replied calmly, and I'm prepared to discuss every aspect of my decision-making process. Dr. Bennett, another board member, interjected. We've also received information about Mr. Sterling's generous donations to the hospital. Yes, donations that specifically honor your contributions to medicine and patient care. I was surprised and honored by his generosity. Dr. Bennett, after extensive deliberation, the board has reached a decision. Isabella held her breath, prepared for anything. We're creating a new position, Director of Emergency Surgical Services. The position would involve developing protocols for crisis situations and training surgeons to handle unprecedented emergencies. Isabella stared at them in shock. Are you offering me the position? We're offering you the opportunity to turn your experience into systematic improvements that could save countless lives. I accept. As Isabella left the boardroom, she realized that what had started as the most challenging night of her career had become the foundation for an entirely new chapter of her professional life. Her phone buzzed with a text from James. How did it go? Better than I could have imagined. Come to the hospital when you can. I have news to share. Good news. The best news. As Isabella walked through the hospital corridors where she had nearly lost everything and instead found herself, she marveled at the unexpected ways that courage could be rewarded. She had risked her career to save a life, and her career had been transformed into something even more meaningful. She had faced her painful past, and it had freed her to embrace a beautiful future. Sometimes, Isabella thought, the universe rewards us not for playing it safe, but for choosing to be who we're meant to be, regardless of the cost. If this story inspired you to believe in the power of doing what's right even when it's difficult, subscribe to Lux Love Chronicles for more tales of courage, forgiveness, and love that transforms lives. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. The greatest love stories aren't always about romance. Sometimes they're about loving ourselves enough to live up to our highest principles. Sometimes they're about loving humanity enough to risk everything for a stranger. And sometimes they're about loving someone enough to let them go while still choosing to serve their highest good. Isabella's story reminds us that true strength isn't measured by what we can accomplish when everything is perfect, but by what we choose to do when everything is falling apart. It's about the grace we show to those who've wronged us, the courage we find in impossible situations, and the love we choose to give even when it costs us everything. Choose courage over comfort. Choose service over safety. Choose love over fear. Because in the end, those are the choices that create lives worth living and stories worth telling.